Do you actually like property? I'm confused here because I've seen a lot of content where you talk about not owning your own home, but you talk about having property. So do you like property or not? I've also seen you talk about seizure of property rights.
Yep.
So do you like property or not?
Well, firstly, the reason I say rent your own home is because it allows you to be flexible. I think that the most adaptable of the species survive, and rent is very flexible. It's flexible because, one, you can move easily. Maybe you get a job opportunity in Japan, you have to bounce. Or maybe your country's about to lock down because of the common cold and you don't want to be stuck in your house. Rent is flexible.
Or you can move out and rent it out.
Completely. Well, that's if you own it, right? We
Yeah.
go into that, but then you have to find a tenant.
That's easy.
Well, perhaps that is
I've got
easy.
1,250 of them.
Okay, perfect. Then let me change it. Then perhaps you don't want to have anything to do with that country anymore and you have to sell it, and that's not quick, right? Another flexibility you have with rent is not paying it.
I've got tenants who don't do that.
You know better than me the law in the West.
Well, yeah.
You don't have to pay it for 6 months.
Pro-tenant, yeah.
So you can just not pay it.
Yeah.
So maybe you're in a situation where...
But you can also vet a tenant properly and then...
Correct.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, we're talking about flexibility. Darwin said the most adaptable of the species survives. This remains true. If you own a home, you are obliged to do X things. You can't not pay the mortgage, you lose the home. If you own the home, you have to upkeep it, etc. I'm saying if you rent a house, you can move if you get a better opportunity. You can move if the government becomes tyrannical, or if crime gets out of control, or something happens in your area which you're never going to know. And thirdly, a serious option is not paying it. And I don't want people to misunderstand me here. I'm not saying don't pay your rent. I'm saying if you have some information, let's say, the bull run that just happened, all that crap's over. But people were making money from thin air for crypto. Let's say you had some reliable information from people you trusted. Let's say those people have been right 100% of the time, and they said if you bought a particular coin, it was going to 1,000x. You could have missed rent for a month. And you could have paid it later. That's flexibility, right? So flexibility is also super important. So I always say the average person should rent where they live. I know that's strange because not everyone can rent. Someone has to own it. The people who own houses need to own them the way you own. If you own 1,250, you're doing very well. The way I own a house, it's not a mortgage. It's just give me this, beep, put on the card, bang, done. I own it, done. I don't live there. There's no work for me. If I had to sell it, I'd never need to sell it quick. I never need the money fast. It's something. It's just an asset. But that's why I say most people should rent until they're wealthy enough to buy it in cash. If you can't buy a house outright in cash, you shouldn't buy it. And even then, if you buy it, you need to be very careful. You need to make sure that that government is never going to turn on you. That area is never going to become downtrodden. And also understand that owning a house isn't free. There's property taxes, there's maintenance, there's upkeep. A lot of the time, by the time you pay all that shit, it's not far off rent.
Why would you not turn the bank system on themselves and get a mortgage on the property and leverage the bank's money and then have better opportunity cost of capital rather than buying houses for cash?
Absolutely, sure, that is a way you could do things. But now you're indebted to a bank. And it's fine if you have money from the sky, you can make money anywhere, that's fine, right? But if you are working a job, let's say in central London, and you owe money to this bank now because you've done it this way, that bank has a degree of control over you. You can't just quit your job. You can't just move. Things become very complicated. It just destroys your flexibility. To answer your question earlier, I don't own any property. I don't own anything. I own this suit, and that's it. So I don't own any property. Some friends of some trusts with some companies which are registered from Singapore may own some property.
Right.
I have the keys to, but I don't own anything.
So you have some assets under your control that are property, but you don't own them.
I don't have any. The Matrix hates me. I don't have anything. But I have some keys to some houses. And yeah, of course, they appreciate. Of course, you can rent them. I completely get it. But the truth is this. Property, like many other things, is very successful for some, but for most, I think it wrecks them. It's player versus player, like I said, in everything. Doesn't matter if it's a cryptocurrency, which you buy at $1 and sell at $10. If you sold at $10, someone bought at $10. Someone gets wrecked. It's the same with property. You've done fantastically well from it. Congratulations. My property has never lost me a penny. Sorry, if I owned property, it would have never lost me a penny. Congratulations to me. But there's a whole bunch of people who get up, finish university, get a mortgage they can barely afford, work their ass off, pay huge interest rates, sitting there paying, and either a financial crisis comes and wrecks them, or they lose the home in the end because they couldn't keep up with the payments, or they finally get it paid off and they're so old that their life's fucking shit anyway. So property is not the be-all and end-all to anything. And in fact, I would recommend to most people, and if you look at most people's finances out here on the street, if you were to take 1,000 people who are watching this right now and look at their finances, 950 of them would be stupid to buy a house. There's 50, it's a good idea. But for the majority, it's not.
Could you say that about any, sorry to interrupt you, so I think it's the first time in 3 hours, so sorry.
No problem.
Couldn't you say that about 1,000 set of case studies of any human being?
Yes, you could.
1,000 of them shouldn't go to your martial arts class because only 50 of them will survive.
Yes, you could. But the difference is the Matrix tries very hard to push the idea of property. Some of the other things...
But you can play the Matrix at its own game.
Completely. 50 of them can. 950 can. And this is my point. My point is that the Matrix says do property, do property, do property. That is only applicable to a very small percentage. It's not applicable to everybody. The Matrix doesn't say do other things that are applicable to everybody. No. It tells everybody the same blueprint. And that blueprint used to be applicable to a lot more people. I don't think this was actually as deliberate as people understand. 50, 60 years ago, property was fantastic for almost everybody. 1 year's wage, you get a house. That house cost 75 grand. Now it's 450 grand. Fantastic. You did good. Absolutely. It's different now that the house is 450 grand, you're earning 40 grand a year. Now it's a very different scenario. So when your parents or older people say, yeah, do property, it was great back then. Now I don't think it's nearly as competitive as it was. I think that the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. I think the poor are getting outpriced of most assets. I think that some of the biggest mistakes poor people can make or middle income people can make is chase assets they can't simply can't fucking afford. And the only way they can do it is to indebt themselves to a bank with interest and enslave themselves for X amount of years, destroy their flexibility to try and pull off owning one property, and owning one ain't gonna make you rich anyway. You gotta own as many as you do. And what I'm saying is, there's a small percentage of people who benefit from property, just like there's a small percentage of people who benefit from crypto or stocks. How many people lose in the stock market?
Most.
Exactly.
How many people lose in Forex? Nearly all.
All, correct. Yeah. So this is the same with every investment. But the reason I'm only attacking property is because property is the one everyone says is safe as houses, good for everybody. No, it is not. It depends on your circumstance. That's my problem with property. In my scenario, your scenario, how can we lose? If I buy a house for $5 million and I'm never, ever, ever going to need that money, I can wait until the day I die to sell it. Then I'm always going to make money. I go, oh, the property prices have crashed to $3 million. Then I don't sell it.
Yeah.
Who cares? It doesn't matter to me. If I had a mortgage on it, it'd matter. If it was my only property, it'd matter. If inflation is 20%, my wages are going up 1% a year, all this shit matters. But not to me, not to you. We're the 50. But 950 people here need to join the real world and learn how to make money a different way. Because we teach you how to make money with nothing. If you make money with nothing, you can't lose. That's the beauty of it. You can lose if you invest in a house. You can't lose if you don't spend any money.
But if you raise money from other people, because money is infinite and everywhere, and partner up with someone and put that into property, that's money out of thin air. And then you buy, hold, die, you can't lose.
To a degree.
And inflation. One thing we haven't talked about yet. You have good debt mortgages. Inflation's paying 20% of that down a year for you.
Absolutely not true. And I'm not going to sit here and say that everybody who's ever bought a house is lost. I only talk about this because the majority of my audience are 18 to 25, 26. They're being told by people much older than them that they buy a house, they'll be financially secure, and I'm telling them that that is simply not the case. And also, there's a bunch of intangible disadvantages, like the absolute inflexibility of the house. I don't know in your experiences, but people I know have spent 2-3 years trying to sell a house. 2 years is eternity. Eternity. 2 years ago, we were locked in our houses. 2 years ago is forever. So if you're going to accept that degree of inflexibility, if you're going to accept that degree of obligation, I think for many people that is a mistake. I think there's better ways to make money, and I think that renting is a lot safer for people. Especially now we're living in a world where a lot of money is made online. I have so many people who can make money online. If you're making money online, even living in a Western country is stupid. Go to Thailand. Live for a fraction. Be safer. Not get stabbed. Like even living in the West in general is dumb if you're making money online, and more people are. So my point is nuanced. There's absolutely exceptions to the rule. There's absolutely scenarios in which I'm totally wrong. It's a nuanced point I'm trying to condense, and I'm saying that property used to be the cure-all for everybody. Get a normal job, work in a factory, pay off your house, be good. It's not like that anymore.
No, pension money is not going to be yours, is it?
Yeah, exactly. It's not like that anymore. And also, what did we say earlier about competitiveness? We said that there are people out there in the world competing with me, and there's people out there in the world competing with you. You're a property shark. You just said it. You're an animal. They're competing with you. Like you can pay more for it and overpay for it because you know you're going to have whatever. You can buy the houses next door and put shit tenants in them. Like if you want to fuck somebody, you could. So they're also competing with sharks, and this is the point I'm making. The reason I'm anti-property is because often it's a 24-year-old guy who just got his first good job out of uni. He might be able to, if he eats ramen noodles for the next 15 years, pay off this fucking council terraced house in Liverpool. And I'm like, bro, that is not going to save your life. You're going to be 50 in a shit house. That's dumb.
So are you saying to earn your money from a standing start. Putting money into property is probably not good, but when you've got wealth, parking it into property is good.
Correct. I think that if you have a lot of wealth, parking your money into assets in general is good. I think that property is a pretty safe asset overall, globally. It does go through some ups and downs, but property performs, you know, it's certainly a fantastic place. I think as a way to generate wealth, there's some people who say it can be done, that's fine, but I think it's very inflexible. I've always preferred flexibility. I think we now live in a world where a lot of money can be made online, a lot of money can be made from a phone, a lot of money can be made from a computer. And also, this all ties back into the very beginning where I said the ultimate bottom line of the world is violence. Property seizure is a perfect example. You mentioned property seizure.
Surely that's something I wanted to ask you. I feel like that's the last thing they'll take before a full-on fucking war. Like they'll take everything else first. They'll call in the gold. They'll debase money. That'll all happen before your fucking house.
Well, if they're going to do it to the whole population, I agree. But if they're going to do it to an individual, I disagree. If you don't pay your parking ticket, they'll take your house. Sooner or later, may take a year, may take 2 years, they will take your house. So my question is this, do you own it? This is my problem with property. I own my house, do you? If they can take it off you anytime you annoy them?
No. If you don't pay your mortgage for 3 months, you'll see you own your house.
Yeah, that's right. If you don't pay your taxes, see you own your house. If you don't wear a mask when they tell you to and you get a fine for not wearing a mask and you think that's injustice and you don't pay the fine and they add money to the fine, then it goes to court, you're supposed to turn up, you don't, they send a bailiff, you tell the bailiff to get fucked, they will take your house. So if you don't wear a mask, they take your house. So do you own it? This is a philosophical question and you can answer. Do you feel like you own your property? Because I would argue that you don't own shit.
Philosophically, I don't think I own anything.
Well, I would actually disagree with that again. I think that there are things you can own in this world.
Well, philosophically though. You said philosophically.
Okay. Well,
like when I'm dead, I'll own nothing.
Well, that's true. Okay, then it was a hypothetical argument. It's a hypothetical point I'm making. When people say I own property.
No, I agree with you because I answered your question philosophically. Yeah. Don't think I own anything. You don't own your own property either as a structure. That's all we'll say. No, I don't think I own my property. I think I own the income it creates. Correct. And the capital appreciation I get.
I would say you own the income it creates when it's not in a bank, when it's in your hand for a while. You own it. Yeah.
But yeah, well, I always take the income. You know, the income comes to me. Now, obviously, if what happened to you happened to me,
then you wouldn't own it.
Then I could be fucked.
Yeah, you wouldn't own the property. If you got canceled to the level I got canceled, you would own none of that property and you would not own the income either because your bank would be frozen. You would own none of it.
What if the assets weren't in my name?
Well, then you might be okay. But this is my point. My point is but you're a shark who can afford complicated legal structures. Joe Schmo is getting a mortgage in his name.
But you teach Joe Schmoes to become sharks, don't you? That's what you do.
That's the goal, yeah. But this is when I say I'm anti-property, it's because of the exact scenario I described earlier. 24-year-old buying a house, getting a mortgage in his name, he owns it, and I say, listen, my friend, one, that's not gonna make you rich. Two, you don't even own it.
But I mean, owning it though, like, what's that all about? Why does it matter if you own it? I like you have a lot of cars. I don't have 30, but I think I have 6 or 7. I don't own a lot of them. I don't own my Aventador. Yeah. I don't own it. I don't want to own it.
Completely. I understand and that there's a financial benefit to doing that. I get it. But property is something different because your cars are a toy and property is supposed to be an investment. And the point is that the whole idea of home ownership is a false paradigm. They're
I think we're now moving towards saying the same thing because I agree. I think selling you of getting into debt. The average American pays £600,000 in their lifetime in interest. The house that they've got you in debt in is a trap, and then you pay half of your money in tax, and then you pay £600,000 in your life in interest. Yeah. I think liberation is when you turn property into an investment.
I agree with you. And for me, it's just a philosophical thing where I think that anything that can be taken off of you, you don't own. So for me, once again, you're in a unique scenario, as am I. But if you're Joe Schmo, owning it is never going to make you rich in any considerable, serious amount of time. 20 years from now, you might get hit by a bus. That's forever. I don't think that long term. All of my plans are 3 to 4 months maximum. And the benefit of renting it versus ownership, well, you can get kicked out either way, and you lose all your flexibility. What's the point? Now, once you sit in there going, I have $7 million in the bank, I don't know what to do with it. Sure, buy some property. Of course, put together a complicated legal structure and own some property. Absolutely. But I don't think that applies to most people who come to me and say, my mom said I should buy a house. Well, you're a dummy. Your mom did something that doesn't work anymore. and you're still a dummy.
Thing is, sometimes your parents love you so much they give you bad advice.
Well, they give you the advice that worked for them.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't blame them. It's worked for them. So absolutely, why would they believe it doesn't work anymore? They were putting money in a savings account and getting interest on the money, like 4 or 5% interest on the money, and then buying a house for 1 year's salary that went up 10x. I'm sure it sounds like a great idea. Imagine if it was still that way right now. I'd tell everyone to buy a fucking house, but it isn't. And then you add into the fact that the government is getting more and more tyrannical. You add into the fact that violence is the bottom line. You add into the fact they will take your fucking house off you. What did they do in Canada to the truckers? When the Canadian truckers got tired of COVID, they went and they protested, and they lost their houses and lost their cars and lost their fucking pets. They euthanized their dogs. You know that?
I didn't know that.
They euthanized their dogs.
I knew that they clawed money out of bank accounts.
They euthanized their dogs and stole their money from their bank accounts. So a man who worked his entire life driving across Canada in a truck, who was a proud home owner, found out very fucking quickly that you don't own anything. It's a scam. So for me, especially as somebody in my situation, my precarious situation, which we've described at length, somebody who is an enemy of the matrix, considering that property is the most controlled matrix asset that exists, considering that if they could take it off me, they fucking would, I need to find assets which are very, very difficult to seize.
Decentralized hard assets, you mean?
Just, there are a whole bunch of things in the world which are actually very difficult to take.
Like?
And property is not one of them.
Yeah.
There's other things.
Like?
One is people not knowing you own things.
Yeah.
Protecting the fact that you even own it. Which is
shut people like me up asking about it on podcasts.
Well, exactly. That's the first. That's the answer, right? One is protecting the fact that you own it. I mean, I don't know about your particular scenario, but in Florida, in America in California and in Canada, they were piercing LLCs. They're piercing LLCs to see who owns the LLC to seize the property. So once again, the law says if it's owned by a company that they can't take it or they can't see who owns the property in the company. Yes, they fucking can. Piss them off.
Yeah.
If you piss them off, they'll throw all the rules out the window. The same reason they're going to kill me. Murder's bad, but they throw the rules out the window when you annoy them. So this is my exact point. So I just personally could never sleep at night knowing, oh, I got 100 million in property. I'm good. Because I'd be like, I don't have anything. I have to be quiet and I have to be careful. And if they don't like me, they'll get me. That to me doesn't feel like ownership. Ownership is they can't take that off of me. That's true ownership. So you don't own property. It's a scam. It's a lie.
I enjoyed that discussion.
And I'm not saying you can't make a bunch of money from it. I'm not even saying that. It's just
You're more talking about people who don't have a lot of disposable tying a noose around their head of owning their own home.
Correct. And then being in a position where they might lose it anyway if they don't completely live their life as a slave and pay every fucking parking ticket.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. I mean, because how do they really enforce parking tickets? Let me give you a quick story. I bought an Aston Martin DBS 3 months ago. I pulled up outside the hotel. I bought it in London. I pulled up at the hotel. I parked in the double yellow. I left it there. Traffic warden was right there. So I'm going to give you a ticket. And I said, bro, have you ever seen James Bond look for parking? Give me a fucking ticket. Don't care. Put a ticket on it. Went in the hotel. Stayed in the hotel come on, I'm busy. Stayed in the hotel for 4 days. Ticket. It came out to a window. It was on my Instagram before they deleted it. A window of tickets. Now, how do they enforce those tickets? Well, we said they'll take your home off you, right? I don't own anything. I don't even own that car. And the car's not in the country anymore. It's sitting in my house in Bulgaria. So now what the fuck are you gonna do? So I got thousands of pounds of parking tickets, and guess what happened? Nothing. Zero. Because I don't play by the stupid rules the Matrix tells me to play by. If I was Joe Schmo and I ignored them, I would lose my home. But me, I could turn up, tell them to get fucked, and do whatever I want. And what you'll actually learn is that much like parking tickets, pretty much all laws on earth and all rules on earth have there's an economic level to which you must adhere, and there's an economic level to which you don't have to adhere. Anything that's financial in and of itself is basically saying it's okay for rich people to do anyway. Let's say I agreed to pay the fine. Cool. I didn't have to look for parking. I paid $3,000. That's worth 5 minutes of my time. So it's basically saying it's okay for a price. So it's okay for rich people. It's not okay for poor people. Whenever there's a fine as a punishment, they're basically saying no poors, no brokies, where rich people can do it. Look at banks. They make billions of dollars breaking the rules and pay $1 million fine. It's okay for the rich. Not allowed to do it with the poor. If you do that, if you pull off some fraud as a brokey, guess what happens? Jail time. Do the bankers go to jail? Fucking never. This is the whole way the whole entire world works. So extrapolating that out, yes, at a certain economic level, there are things you can do and Aikido you can pull that make property fantastic. But as a brokey, it's bullshit. That's the point I'm making.
Hey, before you go, if you want to watch the full uncut interview with Andrew Tate, no holds barred, like you've never seen before, you can watch it here. And before you go, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel and turn the notification bell on. And remember, if you don't risk anything, you risk everything.